This workshop is going to be mainly an introduction to tabbing, so we're going to try and familiarize ourselves with what all of the back areas of TabbyCat are looking like, what we can do there, how we can go through a debate tournament, and what exactly tabbing entails. So first thing is that you'd need to set up a tab. That's where Calico tab comes into play. So what you're going to do is you go into calicotab.com, you log in here, and then you'll be able to, you go onto Calico tab online, you create an account, and then they'll give you the option of purchasing website and creating a tournament. Once that goes through, they'll ask you to create an account. As you can see, this is my username, and then I have a very secret password that I create. I log into it, and this is what the home of the site is looking like. As you can see here, it gives you quite a few options. So you can see there are different areas here from public to admin, and then you have the option of increase limit. The default is for one tournament. Here you have new tournament. Here you go into the database, and here you send test emails and import debate XML. But we're going to worry about that at a later point. What we're going to focus on now is mainly these three areas of TabbyCat. Let's start with the public area, which is the one that you're most familiar with, and the one you usually see when you go to a tournament. So this is what the public sees when they go to a tournament. Here you're going to have the draws displayed. Here you're going to have results published, and all of that good stuff. So this is what a participant usually sees, and that would be the public area. Now, here on the top left-hand side corner, if you click on the tournament title, you'll also have these options of where you can go into, given that you have the main account here that has access to everything. If we go into the assistant areas, here is this is an area of the tournament that's very good for very large tournaments where you have very large teams and you try to minimize the amount of leaks or just minimize overall the amount of mistakes that could happen in a tournament when it's very hard to have an overview of who's doing what. So the assistant area is very good for allowing you to do certain things, but not most things. So what you can do is you can enter results for a round. If let's say you're a runner and your judge is like, oh, I lost my access to my private URL, I don't have a paper ballot, I'm just completely lost, you can enter results. Enter feedback, this would be feedback on judges. This is mostly not used. This you have participants. Here you can see the participants list and institutions, even if it's not public. The participants list is not public. As of right now, our tournament doesn't have a participants list in the public area, so you could access this in an assistant area. Here you have the things that are a bit more relevant, which is the check-ins and the display/print draw areas. In the check-in area, you have a couple of things. Scan identifiers. This is what usually large tournaments like Euros would do. View identifiers lets you have a look at the identifiers, export them, and then put them on like a badge or something. Then in terms of people status, this is the one that's what you would usually see at a tournament in the morning when the tab team is doing check-ins. And here you have the people check-in statuses. Here you can see that there are 7 teams or judges missing, that 0 of them of all of your participants have checked in. Here you have the option on what you can see, whether you want to see only the judges or if you want to see only the teams. Here we have only teams at the moment. If you want by person, here you can see you have speaker 1 and speaker 2 for these teams, or you can do it by teams. Here you can have order, name, or time in in case they checked in. Usually in the morning when you're a tab assistant, in order to check in a team, what you would just click on this button, and that means that both of the speakers of that team are here. If we go into by person, let's say, and we check in only one speaker in one team, and we go back to by team, you're going to see this coloring here, which means that only half of the team is here. When we're gonna see later how to do availability for a round, you'll notice that TabbyCount is counting that team as being present, but it is flagging that it's a risk that that team might have issues showing up for the round because there's just one speaker instead of two that are present. So that's just a good visual cue for you to kind of flag, okay, there's a speaker missing here. They might show up during announcements and they come to me very scared, like, oh, can we be on the draw? And then you kind of go, oh, okay, yes, I know which thing this is about. You'll be on the draw. Here we have, now let's move on to display print draw. Here we have something you often see used in announcement hall. This is often used because the assistant area obviously doesn't have like speaker points or judge scores. It doesn't have access to that. But what it does have access to is displaying the draw. So here we have the option of display draw ordered by room. This is the draw that people usually see on the screen in the announcement hall. So it would be something like alphabetically order from room A to room C. So it's going to be A, B, C, something like that. That's the order here. Displayed draw ordered by team is a bit more difficult to see. That's often less used. And this is display motions. This would be the area we go into when we're trying to display the motion in the announcement hall. Just bear in mind when you click these things, that doesn't release the draw to the public. It just gives you an opportunity to display it on screen. So don't worry about releasing anything when you click these. Now we're gonna move into the admin area, which is the area you're gonna use the most during a tournament. So this is where we do most of the things when we're tabbing. This is where we usually go. In the tab room for this area has results, scores, all of that stuff. So this is the area where we need to be very mindful about when we're tabbing the tournament. So here we have the admin area. As you can see here, we have a lot of things going on. Overview. This is going to just give you a grasp overview of what's happening in the tournament. Latest actions will tell you what's the latest thing that was added onto tab. So this could be something like, as you can see, I've added some teams for this tournament. And this will show up on TabbyCat. If someone submits feedback on a judge, it will also show up in latest actions. Same with people submitting ballots or CAs, let's say, changing judge scores and whatnot. So these things will show up in latest actions. And then latest results, it will be the one where the ballots are coming in. Be careful with latest results because this is the area where results might show up and you might not realize that they're visible. So be careful with this area. Don't treat it as something that's public. Then moving on, after overview, we're going to have setup. And here in setup, you see we have a bunch of subcategories. Firstly, let's go into configuration. This would be where you would change things like releasing the tab at the end of a tournament or making the break results public. Here, we used to have a bit more in terms of things that we have to do, but now because TabbyCat has gone better, are just automating stuff for BP when you select BP. When you create your tournament, now there's less thing for you to do, but it's still good to have a good look at what's going on and where things can be found. So in score rules, here you can see you have the minimum speaker score, which for BP is 50, and the maximum is 99. We don't use replied scores in a BP, and so this is not something we want to play with. Okay, in draw rules, we have mainly the things that Tabbycat does in order for the draw to be set up. So here we have pairing methods, pull-up restrictions. You don't really want to mess up with these, and you want to leave them as such. So this way the draw is as fair as possible for everyone. Back to configuration, we're going to have debate rules. So because this is BP, is automatically 4 teams per debate and consensus ballots. Here you can see you also have 1 ballot per voting adjudicator, but that is something that happens in formats like WSDC more so than BP. So we're just going to leave it as consensus ballot. Do not require separate winner selection and only require speaker scores in preliminary rounds. So this is again an area where you don't really want to mess up with, but it's good to know if anything goes wrong that it could go wrong in these areas. And here is where you can find the solutions. In standings, you will be able to see what the metrics are for team standings. So firstly, it's going to be by points. So the team with the most amount of points is going to be ranked the highest. Then in order to differentiate between teams, you're going to have total speaker score, number of firsts, and number of seconds. If we click on this, you'll be able to see that there are a few other things that you can sorry, the share screen is a bit delayed, but basically, if we click on this, Tabbycat is going to give you a lot of other metrics that you can use. So it's going to be something like number of thirds or number of times in pull-up debates. Those are not covered in the EUDC constitution. So for most tournaments that are using the same rules and formats as EUDC, this is something that you're not gonna change. And very often, if you're gonna change, it's very good to have a group discussion about this and what that means for the tournament. So similarly, for speaker standings, you have average. So a speaker's average will going to be the first differentiation between the speakers, and then you're also going to have the standard deviation. So this is in standings. Again, nothing to change here. Feedbacks is more about judge feedback. So here you have the minimum score can be 0 and the maximum score can be 10. A question you might have is, why is this 0 when the BP scale is from 1 to 10? Very often when you first import judges, it's very good to have them as 0 if you don't have a score from the CA team yet. This way you'll be able to see who's at the bottom of the standings and who doesn't have a score from the CA team. It's just easier this way not to miss anyone and making sure that everyone has a score. Here you can have the type of feedback or who can submit feedback on whom. So here we have allow and expect feedback to be submitted by. Here you have multiple options. At this point is panelists on chairs, chairs on panelists, and trainees. You can sometimes change this, but that will be a discussion you'd like to have with the CA team first before making this change. Okay, so this is what the feedback section looks like. Then motion, this is not a section we are using NBP, but you can do something like show motion and results. That's something that might come up. Okay. Then if we go into tab release, This is an area you will have to use at the end of the tournament. So this will be where we release the tab team to public or the speaker tab. So in order to do that, you'll have to just click this button here and then save configuration. And on the public area, which we were previously on, you'll now have the team tab public. Similarly for the speaker tab, we don't have replies tab in BP, so this is not relevant. What is relevant is the release break / team category tabs to public. So this will be, let's say, if you have a novice break or an ESL break, if you click this button, Tabbycat is also going to show you the, let's say, ESL team tab or the novice team tab. Similarly to the release speaker category tabs to public, this is going to release like the ESL speaker tab or the novice speaker tab, depending on what your tournament has. And then in release motions to public, this is going to be the button you'll have to click to make public that page on Tabbycat where you have the motion stats for everything, and that you'll also have to do at the end of the tournament. What you don't want to click is release adjudicator tab to public. You don't want the judge scores to be out unless agreed beforehand. Similarly with release ballots to public, that is a good button to click. Usually teams like to have the ballots out. It's easier for them to just track their performance and what happened in a debate. However, the release ballots to public is not a norm. It's just something that I personally think is a good thing to do, and sometimes I would bring this up to the teams I'm working with. Then you also have release all round results to public. This will make the close rounds and the elimination round, so in this case the out rounds, public to everyone. So this is also something you want to click on at the end of a tournament. Now we're going to go back into configuration because we haven't clicked on save configuration. All of those changes are now no longer clicked when we would go back into this. Now in terms of data entry, here the important bit is making sure that these two on top are use private URLs. If your tournament is using e-ballots or is using private URLs to get judge feedback, make sure you have these on. Otherwise, people are just gonna come to you and be like, I can't submit a ballot. What's going on? Usually this is forgotten to be selected. Okay. And then these bits are mainly not relevant to BP, but these two you need to be careful at. Now going back into configuration, we have public features. So here, once you have the participants list, what you will like to do is enable public view of participants list. This is good to have in the leading up or tournament for clash purposes. It's something that Tabbycat doesn't automatically do, so you'll have to do it yourself here. Then enable public view institutions list is not a must. Sometimes you'll have equity or CAs or Orcom ask you to release this. If you do, this is where you can find it. Okay, then enable public view of diversity info is something that is not really in use unless your tournament is collecting that data and you're putting that data into Tabbycat. This sometimes happens at majors. I think I've had like 1 or 2 tournaments that had it, so it's a rare occasion that you have to use it, but this is where it would be. And then enable public view of the check-in statuses. This is a button that you can click in the morning of a tournament. This way people are going to have an extra way to see whether they've checked in or not. Usually this will also be in their private URL, but if they don't want to go into their private URL or just like want to see if their friend made it on time or not, this way it will be public on who checked in, who hasn't yet. It's a good modality for people to just kind of like have a reminder that they need to check in. So it's good to have. Then show break categories on participants' pages is clicked. So in this case, when you click on a Teams page, it will say something like break categories, open, ESL, novice, depending on what eligibility they have. Usually this would be where people would check their eligibility is correct and let you know if something's wrong for you to change it. So you want to have this on. Okay, then in enable public view of results, this will just let Habitat know to release the round results for all of the rounds that are public. So this button here won't release the results for a round that is marked as closed. So don't worry about this. Don't panic if you see this clicked. On enable public view of motions, this is an important one to remember. This isn't the motions tab. This is just public view of motions. So when you release the motion for a round, Tabbycat is going to make it public. It won't release the motion stats or anything. That will be at the end of a tournament. You want this button being clicked during a tournament and then disable it at the end of a tournament once you have the motion stats. Then enable public view of team standings. Again, this only includes the open round, so we won't release anything that's a closed round result. And enable public view of record pages allows people to go and see the record of a certain team or a certain judge, like who they judged before, who they debated against. Again, don't worry about this. It should be clicked. It won't release anything that's not supposed to be out. Then we have these two, which is release team breaks to public and release adjudicator break to public. These you'd like to click once the break results are out, and Tabican is also then have able to show these on a public page. Again, this will only release the teams that broke. It won't release results for anything else. So teams that break, the list of adjudicators that are breaking to public, and this will going to be in alphabetical order. And then another useful button is the public view of unsubmitted feedback. This would be the button you'd like to click, mainly after round 2 or 3, when you start to have when you'll start to have more unsubmitted feedback, and this way it will be easier for people to see who has and who hasn't submitted feedback. It's just a good way to incentivize people to submit their feedback. Here you can have tournament staff. So I have Miruna for tab, and then what I can do is I can put down org. Just because they're here, I'm gonna write Alex, and we're gonna give a shout out to Merton. And then this would be a welcome message. Here, sometimes people put a link to the tournament schedule or anything of that sort. It's up to you what you want to put in here. Obviously, try and make it relevant. And if we go into save configuration now, Alex is gonna show up on the public area as org. Okay, then if we go okay, in UI options, this is we don't really show splitting adjudicators, so we don't have to really worry about that. In code names, this would be for large tournaments that decide on code names. So this would be only if there's a discussion about it beforehand and there's agreement to use code names that you'd like to change. Same for participants. Okay, then this is a very important one because it shows the emoji of a team. Teams really love their emojis. Don't mess with this. Less important is a team institution. As you can see, it's not clicked. So it wouldn't have their institution just next to their team on a participants list, for instance. Here it shows the adjudicator institutions. This is clicked. That's why you'd see in a participants list that Judge A is from University Narnia, for instance. Okay, and then show speakers and draw. You can click or unclick this. For BP tournaments, this is often clicked. Where you like to unclick it would be for school tournament where you don't really need the participants' names to be out. And for safeguarding reasons, it would just be better for your names not to be out. That's where you would use this. Otherwise, usually people are okay with their names being in the draw or things like that. Okay, and notification and global settings. We're not going to go into these today because we're trying to keep into time. So that's going to be in the future, or you can have a look yourselves. Okay, then Kiruk, this is also something you won't have to go into during the tournament, so we can keep this for later on. Now, this would be the configuration in the setup. Now we can move on to import data. This is the page you'd like to use when you add teams or judges or institution rooms and whatnot. So if we go with institutions, this would be how you add an institution into TabbyCat. Let's say we want to add Utrecht Debating Society. So this would be the society name. This will be their full name. And then we want to use a short name. This is often the name that they're mostly referred to, that people will not understand what you're talking about when you mention it. Important thing is that the long name is followed by a comma and then you don't have a space. So you just directly put in the short name. So in this case, it would be Utrecht for Utrecht Debating Society. And then you're going to go next step. You just double check here that this is correct and the code is also correct. So we're just going to save all institutions. And now we've added one institution to our tab. Let's say we now want to add one team and two judges from the institution or the society we just added. So what we're going to do is we clicked on add teams, and here you're going to have a list of all of the institutions we have on our tab. We're going to go under Utrecht Debate Society and we're going to add one team. And we're going to do next step. Now, let's say for whatever reason your tournament would like to be letter named instead of number named. So we're going to have Utrecht A. Because we've clicked this button, TabbyCat will automatically add Utrecht A on tab. And then first speaker names, we're going to have Dumb and Dumber. That's purely because I've just spoke with my sister and we call each other Dumb and Dumber. That's not a reference to any of the speakers that are doing BP. That's just a disclaimer. Sorry about this. Okay, and then in terms of email addresses, here as you can see, you have Dumb on the first line and Dumber on the second. What you can do is you can also put in Dumb, Dumber. This way TabbyCat will also know that these are two different speakers and two different names. What you want in the email addresses is to keep to the same format. So because here we have different lines, we also want to have different lines here. So the email address for dumb is going to be dumb@example.com, and the email address for dumber is going to be dumber@example.com. And we're going to go into save all teams, and now we've added one more team to our tab. If we want to add adjudicators, we go into add adjudicators. We're going to choose which institution they're from. In this case, it's going to be Utrecht as well, both of them. And this is what this is likely to look like. So we're going to have adjudicators for Utrecht Debate Society, and we're going to have adjudicator 1 and 2. And we're just going to give them the score of 0 because we haven't spoke with the CA team to give us a score. And for emails, we're going to have just adj1@email.com and adj2@email.com. And we're going to save it. And now we have 2 adjudicators at our tournament. The next thing would be add your rooms. So here, in terms of rooms, what you'll need to do is have a name for your room and add a priority for your room. So let's say you have a room that you know you definitely want to use. It's close to the announcement hall, it's spacious, is great. This is going to be room ABC. And because we really want this room and we want Tabbycat to prioritize giving us this room when we create the draw, we're just going to give it a priority of 100. Then we have also room EDF, which it's okay, but it's not like something to write home about. We're going to just put it 90 because it's a bit far away, but everything else is also good. It's not like 300 floors up. It's not in a basement with no light. It's just you just have to walk for a bit longer. We're going to put these as 190. You would like to give a bit of space between these two because you can always have a room that shows up that you can use that's like a bit better than EDF, but not as good as ABC. So we're just going to go next step. And these are your rooms. That is their priority. I'm just going to save this. Okay. So you have institutions, we have team, you have judges, you have rooms. Here is what happens once you added all of that data. You can add or edit room categories. So this would be where you have a group of rooms that are similar in characteristics and you want Tabbycat to consider them as a group. So let's say you have a tournament where 5 of the rooms are on a floor that's very hard to reach without climbing up a lot of stairs. You try to place those rooms outside of a category. So the rooms you are just kind of like, okay, let's use if we must, or let's use for the general public, but not for people that have accessibility requirements. Let's not use those. Let's have the rooms that we want clustered together. So you would have something like the name of the category would just be close because they're close to the announcement hall. So that would be the description. Close to the announcement hall. We don't want to display this in a room name when we're going to have the draw, so it doesn't matter for us, but you could have the options to display it or not, and then if do you want it on the public pages. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put ABC, so we're going to click on it. It's going to be selected now as being part of the closed room categories. And we're just going to scroll down and save. So now we have a category that's just close to the announcement hall. what we're going to do once we've added the room category is go into room constraints. And let's say we have a team that needs to be close to the announcement hall. We select team here, add the type, and then we're going to have Narnia 3. We're just going to select Narnia 3 on the drop-down list. I think it's a bit, I don't think that shows up on the share screen, but trust me, there's a drop-down list, and we're just picking Narnia 3, and then the ID just shows up by itself. You don't need to remember this. And then once we click on room category, you're going to also have a drop-down list, and we're going to choose close. And the priority of this constraint is also going to be 100. It's very important that this is on top of our priority list. And then we're also going to have a judge. In this case, is going to be Edge 2, who also needs to be close to the announcement hall, but their priority is a bit lower. They're 80. Equity tells you it's great if we can accommodate it. If we can't, then that's okay. So in that case, we're going to just save these room constraints, and now we have those added onto tab as well. Here we have the clashes section. So this would be add team conflicts. That's when an adjudicator can't judge a team. Here we have add conflict. This is when two judges can't judge with each other. And these would be institutional conflicts. So a judge can't judge an institution, and a team can't be judged from judges from a certain institution. Important to note, none of these are clashing a team from another team. That's not something that we do in BP. So let's just say we're going to have an edge team conflict. If we click onto the page, we'll have to choose an adjudicator. In this case, it's going to be adjudicator 1, who won't be able to judge the team Utrecht A. This is going to show up as a hard clash, not an institutional clash, because this is on top of an institutional clash. Let's say they can't, Edge 1 can't judge Team Utrecht A because they're all flatmates and they live together. So that would be on top of being from the same institution. And then we're just gonna save these, and that conflict has been added onto TabbyCat. From and edit break categories, this would be, or speaker categories, this where we would add novice or ESL categories. So it's gonna look something like this. You're gonna have this is the open category where we have A teams breaking. So this is going to be a break to semis and is general. That means that all of the teams in the tournament are eligible for this break. Okay, and then priority is going to be 100. That means teams will if they are in the top 8 teams eligible for this break, they'll automatically go into this. And then let's say we want to add an ESL break. The name will be ESL, and the slug is going to be ESL as well. And we want a break size of 4, so we're going to have only a final. Is it general? No. Only certain teams are going to be ESL, and we'll have to manually allocate that status to each team. And for priority, we're going to put down 90, which is lower than the general break, meaning that if these teams are in the top 8, they're going to go into the open break. If not, they're going to fall under the ESL break. And limits, we want this to be 0. And we're just going to save this break category, and now we have an ESL break. And as you can see, we also now have an ESL final. Okay. So this is about import data. We're going to go into speaker categories at a later point, purely to get ourselves through around by the end of the workshop. So now we're going to move on to participants. This is where you can see the participants list. So here you have speakers, adjudicators. Here you have participants. You'll have an institution list here. Email team registrations is not something that we're going to use very often. Then speaker categories. This would be where you add your speakers. It's either through here or the import area that we just discussed. And then we also have speaker eligibility. Here you'd have a list of ESL or novice if you added those speaker categories, and then you can just click a button. Okay. Here we will have the private URLs. So this is where you'd get the private URLs from. Here you'll be able to email the URLs if you want to do this through Tabbycat. Here you can select who is getting the emails and who isn't. Here you're going to see that because these speakers weren't provided with emails, we won't be able to email them, but luckily Dumb and Dumber come in and you'll be able to submit all of the feedback that's going to decide the break. Okay, and here is the message that you're going to send in the email. You can change this here. So user will be just the name that they grab from here, and then tournament is going to be tournament name, and the URL is just going to be the URL that they grab from here. And if you're going to click send messages, Tabbycat will be able to send those out to people. Okay. Then emails and export XML we're going to worry about at a later point. Preform panels is usually where you can either help the CA teams put these onto Tabbycat, or sometimes they do it themselves. You can go into, let's say, you want preform panels for round 1. These would be panels of judges. You can have before you actually do the draw for a round, or even do check-ins. These are good if you just want to have a rough idea of what the panels are going to look like even before the tournament starts. So we are now in the preform panels for round 1. What we're going to do is create panels. So we're just going to click on this. And because we have 8 teams, Tabbycat knows we have 2 rooms. So it's created 2 panels. What you can do is then we have 2 judges. So we have Edge 1 and Edge 2. Okay, we can just allocate them as chairs, and that would be just in the center here. And these will show up as chairs for the two debates we're going to have in round 1. If you want to have a chair and a wing, we're just going to move adjudicator 2 here, and adjudicator 1 is just going to stay in the chair role, as you can see. And then let's say adjudicator 2 is going to be a trainee. We're just going to move them here where the T is. And this way Tabbycat is going to know that they are training. Okay. And these preform panels are saved as you go along, so you won't have to click a save button. Okay, we're just going to go back and have a look at the check-ins. For a tournament, again, you're going to be mostly interested in people's status. This is something we went through when we discussed the assistant area, so I won't go into much detail. Feedback, this is where the judge feedback is going to be either added on. So here you'll see what the latest submissions were through private URLs. Here you can find by source, so you can see feedback submitted by a certain team or by a certain judge, and find by target. This is if you want to see what the feedback is on one specific judge. You'll see who hasn't submitted feedback. Here you can add feedback yourself, and here you can bulk update. This would be primarily for scores. Okay, this would be an overview of the feedback. So here we have the base is 100%, meaning that the score of the adjudicator is 100% the one that's been decided by the CA teams. As round progress, this is going to get lower, this is going to get higher. But this would be what round 1 looks like. Because we don't have anyone with the score yet shows up as 2 trainees, this is going to change once you add scores. Here, you'll be able to see the adjudicator's current ranking. This would be live updated after every round, and once this ratio changes as well, here would be the base score. So here you can see what the judge started at, and here you can see the difference between the score they started with and their current score. It's good to see if anyone like outperformed or underperformed, and kind of flag that. So it's good to have a look at this. And here you can also see the feedbacks, which currently we don't have any, but this is where you'll see the feedback that's been submitted on them. Okay, now standings, this is where you'll be able to see the tab and speaker and motions tabs during a tournament while they're still not being released. We're gonna not go into these for now, but this is where you could find them. Usually you don't really need to see these if you're tabbing a tournament, and to be honest, I kind of avoid doing that just because it spares me the stress. Okay, and then we're just going to go into round 1, and we're just quickly going to take you through how we set up the draw for a round. First thing would be availability. So we're just going to see how we mark people as available. So we can mark everything as available. However, we rarely want to do this. We want the information to be accurate. So best thing would be to match the check-ins. Here would be who checked in is now showing up as available for this round. Who hasn't, Tabbycat won't put them into the draw because you have a team that, let's say, showed up last minute. You're gonna put them as active now here. But if you check them in, you'll also have to change about availability later on. So this doesn't update with the check-ins at the same time. You'll have to do this yourself by going back and re-clicking this button. Okay. Or you can also do all or none. Okay. In terms of adjudicators, it's going to be the same for rooms. In this case, I'm just going to mark everything as available. So we have 8 teams here, 2 judges, 2 rounds. How nice. We're just going to generate the draw here at the top right-hand side corner. Here, you're going to have the draw that Tabbycat gives you. You're just going to have to confirm draw here. You don't have to do anything else here. And this is going to be the draw. As you can see, there are no rooms and no judges attached to this. This is something that we'll have to do ourselves. First would be to allocate judges and then rooms, because you never know what judges have room restrictions. So we went into allocate adjudicators, and here you can see the draw, who is in what room, and here you have, similar to the preform panels, you have the empty slots. In this case, we have, let's try and put adjudicator 1 and the top room. Here you can see that there is a very hard conflict between Utrecht A and adjudicator 1. Tabbycat shows you putting these 2 together. No, that's a big no-no. So you're going to move this adjudicator into the other room. And here you're going to have adjudicator 2 judging this room. Here you can see that there's an institutional conflict, so that's going to be marked in yellow on Tabbycat. It's very good not to have one, but sometimes for small tournaments like these one with 2 rooms, it's difficult to avoid it, so you'd much rather have a yellow conflict than a red one. We're just going to go back. And here you can see we have the 2 adjudicators, we have rooms. Here Tabbycat is telling you that there's an institutional conflict. So it's always good to double check here as well, in case you missed something in the adjudicator allocation. And then we're just going to go into rooms to allocate the rooms. And we're just going to click allocate and auto allocate. And now we have the 2 rooms allocated to the debates. And here you'll see that the room constraints are met. So for both Narnia 3 and for the adjudicator. So they are in room ABC. Tabby Cat allocated that correctly. Okay, here you would be if you want to go back into the preform panels and edit them back, but that's less relevant for now. Okay, and then once you have your adjudicators, your rooms, you're fine with your conflicts, you're just going to go into display draw. And here will be where we're going to release results. We're going to enter a motion, release the draw, and the motion to the public. So we're just going to enter a motion here. Important to note is the info slide is at the bottom and the motion is on top. This is in the reversed order of what you'll have on the screen when you have info slide at the top, motion at the bottom in the announcement hall. So sometimes this can be tricky, but keep in mind here, motion is the first thing you put in. And the motion for this one would be this house would eat a snack. The reference for the motion is going to be snack. You need to add the reference and the motion. You don't need to add an info slide. And we're just going to save the motion. Now the motion is on Tabby Cat. And let's say we have the motion. We've put the draw in the announcement hall. This would be where we release the draw. And we now also release the motion. And our round has started. Now that our round has started, we're going to go into enter results. And this would be where the private URLs come in. This would be where you check that they're identical and that the round is underway. I think we're running out of time, so I think that just means we need to have an intro to tabbing part 2. Keep on tuned if you want to see what Narnia 1, 2, and 3 are doing.